Another thing was funding deals. Since it's not really that well known or talked about, there's not many DSCR lenders for it. There's not a lot of banks that want to touch it. A lot of banks don't like land, and they also don't like mobile homes. So we're putting the two together. You can imagine how many banks are excited to do that deal with us. So at first, that was the challenge. I think there's more conversation around it now than there was. But those were the two things, the education and funding those deals. And we kind of had a leg up because we owned a lot of mobile home parks and we were familiar with mobile homes. Those were the biggest challenges that we ran into with these. As far as selling them in the market, we haven't had really any challenges with that. The only thing I'd tell you is, like I said earlier, stay out of land in bad areas and also don't buy land that's down in a hole.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cashflow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host. I'm so glad to have you back listening to the show. We've got an excellent guest today. Chris Gavre. Is it Gavre? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Gavre, but that's fine.
Gavre, okay. Thanks. Names are important. Gavra. So for everybody out there listening, be ready to take notes. Just if you're driving, don't worry about it. You're going to get the show notes, of course. But first off, let's do this, Chris. If you wouldn't mind, fill people in a little bit about who you are and kind of take us what was your pivotal point that got you into real estate that started in this whole crazy business.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. I appreciate you having me on. My journey started about 5 years ago. I was 22 years old at that time. I had a pressure washing company, and I was just trying to figure out how to make a little bit of money. And there's this guy that was a realtor, and I was always washing his houses for him, his apartments, all that. And one day he sat me down in his office and said, "Man, what's your goal? Like, what are you trying to do here?" And at that time, the biggest I could think was I want to make $100,000 in a year. And he said, "Well, man, you're going to be a tired boy washing houses. That's a lot of houses to wash." And he said, "You should think about getting into real estate." And so he kind of nudged me to go get my real estate license. Started out by doing that, went to the class. Late 2020, around November, December, I got my actual license. Did a couple of retail transactions, found out I absolutely hated it. But the first transaction I ever did, my mom's neighbor had this mobile home that he wanted to sell. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of a tightwad, great guy, but he didn't want to pay 6%. But he said, "Hey, go find me a buyer, I'll pay 3%. Well, he only wanted $50,000 for this thing. And so I was like, okay, fine. So I put it in this Facebook group, like, "Hey, I got this mobile home for sale." It's like a real estate investing Facebook group. This lady reaches out. Long story short, she ended up wholesaling this house, and she was switching brokerages at the time. And so she came to the brokerage that I was at that time. And one day I saw her in the office about a month or two after that transaction. And I was like, "Hey, what did you ever end up doing with that mobile home?" And she said, "Oh, I wholesaled it." It's like, "What is that?" She's like, "Well, I signed this other guy." Long story short, she made $20,000 and I made like $900. And that's when I realized I'm in the wrong business. And so she encouraged me to get into wholesaling. So beginning of 2021, February, January timeframe, she was teaching me how to wholesale. So her and I were kind of partners. I would cold call, try to find deals. About a month into that, I found a couple duplexes. Her and I ended up wholesaling them. Long story short, we ended up kind of going separate ways. Nothing bad there, just didn't work out. And but she taught me how to wholesale. And so in 2021, I was wholesaling primarily residential houses. Fast forward into 2022, LLR, which is the licensing board in South Carolina, came out with some regulation, and they kind of outlawed wholesaling for realtors. And it was new legislation, and someone had reported me because I was posting deals in these Facebook groups. So I got the cease and desist letter. It was brand new, like I'm going to call it legislation, but it wasn't really. And so I was like, man, I guess I got to stop. I don't know, what to do now. And at that time, I had bought a mobile home park or two, and I was kind of buying rentals along the way whenever I could, or flipping some houses. So I was like, all right, I'll do mobile home parks. I kind of know that space. I had one or two at this time. And ended up finding a mobile home park, and I was actually trying to wholesale it because they told me I just couldn't do residential. And anyways, this guy named Robert was buying mobile home parks, and I was trying to wholesale it to him. Come to find out, he didn't like my assignment fee. It was like $75,000 or something. He said, "Man, why don't you just be my partner on this instead of an assignment fee? I'll just get it at cost. You'll come in and be a 30% owner with me." I said, "Okay, fine." So we ended up partnering on this mobile home park. From there, he had a bunch of 1031 money. So we had kind of bought a couple other mobile home parks together. And then one day he was telling me how he has this dealer's license, a mobile home dealer's license. And basically what that means is you go directly to the manufacturers like a Clayton or a Cavco or a Champion Homes and get these houses at wholesale pricing. And we had some empty lots in our park. And so he was telling me what he could get these new houses for. And I was like, man, why aren't we just buying land and putting these brand new houses on it, make them FHA compliant, and let's just go sell them on the market? And I said, man, that's a good idea. So beginning of 2023, I think it was February 2023, we bought our first lots that we were going to go do this model with, buy some brand new double wides, make them FHA, sell them on the market. It ended up going really well. And the rest is history. Robert and I are still doing that to this day. That's all we focus on primarily now. We just do that for kind of active income and then shove our money back into some mobile home parks for some long-term income. But that's a little synopsis of how I ended up where I'm currently at.
That's awesome. I mean, I'll tell you what, one of the secrets to success is putting yourself out there in the world and meeting people, having conversations, and basically networking. And all it takes is one person to say one thing, the right thing to you at the right time, and it just changes the whole trajectory of your life. And it's just, that's how business is. I mean, you can go to, the Wharton School of Business, you can go to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, any of those schools you want. I'm not knocking them. They're great places. I love education, But the bottom line is the way business gets done is exactly the way you described it. I mean, I've got friends that, like, out of high school, some of us went to Virginia Tech, some went to Old Dominion, and this was in Virginia, of course, but some of them went to VMI, Virginia Military Institute. Well, don't you know, those guys did the best because they stuck together. One was a cement contractor, another one was a developer, and they worked together and fed each other, the businesses, and every one of them, has done well. But that's just how this stuff gets done. So, so going back to that, when you're saying make it FHA, is that literally taking the mobile home so it's permanently attached to a foundation? Is that the process of making it FHA eligible, or is there more to it than that?
That is part of it. So you have to do what's called detitling it, which basically you retire the title, because mobile homes come with a title, just like a car. And so you have to retire the title to the county and make it permanently affixed to the land. And doing that, you have to do the permanent foundation. That can be like a vinyl skirting, but it has to have a solid surface backing. It could be like a concrete board foundation or the commonly seen brick foundation. And you have to have inspector go out there and they'll give you a certificate saying this is FHA compliant. So yes, you do have to do the foundation. You do have to retire the title, and then you have to get an engineer inspection to give you that certification that it is FHA certified.
Yeah.
And about 90% of our buyers are FHA. So it's definitely something that you'd want to do.
Yeah, I agree. Plus it's easy. I mean, it's the most common loan product out there, and you can, first time home buyers put down 3%. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that.
Right.
But what's interesting, I was thinking back, a long time ago, mobile homes really looked like trailers. They didn't have the look of a single family home. They had a look of a trailer, and they had a bad rap. And the lenders didn't consider them an asset. They can consider them like a vehicle. It's going to depreciate over time, like real depreciation, physically falling apart.
Yeah.
Whereas today's homes, I mean, they're actually made a lot better material, better workmanship, and it reminds me of it, particularly in the South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. And I know a lot of investors that have targeted South Carolina for their parks, mobile home parks, and they would do that. They would repurpose them, over time. So, pretty interesting.
It's a great product, and what I like the most about it is it's so predictable because the house is made in a factory. When we were flipping houses or we've done a couple of new construction, you're always scared when the buyer's getting the inspection. You're kind of like holding your breath, like I hope they don't find too much and scare them off. Yeah. But with these, it's never an issue because it's inspected before it left the factory. You know what you're getting every single time, and it's just a lot more predictable. But I agree with you. Mobile homes always have gotten a bad rap, and they still do. But that's kind of part of the reason why I love them, because a lot of people underestimate them.
Yeah. Yeah. So what let's talk about this. You have I guess you call it like a land home package. I was just reading up on this a little bit, but tell us a little bit about what that is and maybe some numbers, average, like what would be an average for South Carolina or North Carolina or even the Greenville area, for example, that people can maybe look at. Not so everybody, listen, I want you to understand this. neither Chris and I are attorneys or accountants or any kind of thing like that at all. This is the discussion for your benefit to learn from. So these are just examples for you to learn from, not actual, numbers that you can or should rely on yourself. But anything you can share with us, Chris, like a recent one that you did. What was it going into it? How much did it cost? What was the value of the land, the home? What when you got it all, the title change and all that, put it on a foundation. Then what did it look like on the exit strategy and things like that?
Sure. Yeah. So in our market, usually we're able to pay up to $30,000 per lot. So if someone's got 5 acres and we can make 10 lots out of it, we'll pay up to $300,000. And a lot of that's based on the sales price. So the cost of the house and the setup oftentimes is kind of a fixed price, no matter where you are in the country. That will vary, of course, depending on model of house and all of that. But what really is ebbing and flowing is the price of the land, and then of course the sales price on the back end. So in our market, we're able to pay up to about $30,000 per lot. We can pay a little bit more if it's already got utilities already cleared, graded, all of that. We're typically selling around 220, 230 in our market. Our all-in cost is usually around 150 to 160 after you factor in some cost of money and then realtor commissions and all of that jazz. We're usually netting out around 40 to 45,000 on each one of these. I do know that we have a couple guys down in Florida that are doing these, and they're making around 70 to 75,000 on each one.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful down there, and that's because what we're able to sell for 220, 230, they can sell for close to 300 or 285, and much of their cost is the same as it is for ours. But oftentimes, and one thing that you look at is the topography. We've messed up several times buying lots that are kind of down in a hole, and not only does that really hinder you when you're trying to sell on the back end, because no one wants to live down in a hole. Also, your grading costs can get out of control really quick. And so that's the main thing that we learned is that the one cost that will fluctuate the most is your clearing grading costs. Everything else will be relatively the same each time. But for us in our market, we're usually all in around 150, 160, selling around 220, 230, give or take a little bit.
Okay. Now, you'll get the land, get that prepared, and then we always bring in a new home, a new manufactured home.
Yeah. So so according to FHA, a house can't be moved more than one time and still be FHA compliant. So you can't buy a used double wide and move it to your land and make it FHA compliant.
Yeah.
So it has to be brand new, but also that helps, as a selling point. People like buying brand new houses, just like they do with new construction homes. So it helps sell it better anyways. And oftentimes our timeline, if we buy a piece of land today, we're usually set up and on the market within 60 days. So it's very quick turnaround. The only time that'll change is delivery timeline from the factory. If they have a lot of demand, then maybe it'll take a little bit longer. But right now we're getting houses in 2 to 3 weeks and they're on the market within 2 months.
Yeah. Are you looking for land that's already got utilities on them, or do you ever have to put in utilities yourself?
I would say 90% of land is just raw land when we buy it. So we're putting in septic, we're putting in water taps, all of that. If we can find it with that already in place, of course, that's awesome. But that's kind of hard to find, or it's not as common.
Okay. And then, of course, electric and gas. Is it all electric, by the way, in most places, or?
Yeah, so we're only doing electric.
Gotcha.
But that might vary based on state and location, but for us, it's all electric.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then so the role that all the different roles involved of all there's you. Are you generally are you bringing in an investor that's maybe somebody putting up the money for all this, and you're managing the project, that part of the 45,000, or is it just you guys yourselves, or is it maybe a mixed bag of opportunities like that?
It's mixed. So we've got probably 3 or 4 just private lenders that'll fund a lot of them. We'll do some DSCR lenders. We have a local bank that we'll use, but we also have someone that will come in as a third party that'll put in the cash. That's usually our last choice because he's the most expensive, as you can imagine. But there's no debt involved in it. It's fine to split it 3 ways and no cost of money besides giving him a third of profit. So we'll mix and match there. It's not one set thing. We do, 50 to 60 per year of these, so we kind of have to just grab it from all these different sources.
Yeah.
Hey there, did you know you can join a free real estate mastermind session every Monday night? It's called Monday Night Live, and it kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm Gary Wilson, and every week I host this live class, joined by investor agents from across the country and around the world. And here's the best part: no selling, no recruiting, just pure, actionable real estate education. Every Monday, we cover everything from the basics to advanced strategies. We even bring in expert guests once or twice a month. Topics like how to buy property using crypto, how AI is reshaping the real estate landscape, what the metaverse and blockchain mean for real estate deals today. Whether you're a new investor or a seasoned pro, you'll walk away with real value, and you'll have the chance to ask questions live, connect with others, and expand your network. Sound good? Then head over to realestatewithgarywilson.com. Click the Resources tab, select Monday Night Live, and you'll find recent replays plus a full schedule. You can register for any upcoming session, even weeks in advance. And if you're watching this on social media, just check the video description for the direct registration link. I'll see you Monday night. Bring your questions, your notepad, and your drive to grow. I look forward to connecting with you.
So at the end of the day, the final role being played, a role player, is the actual end user. Somebody's going to buy it and live in it. That's like, in other words, do you ever rent them out, or is it you're always selling and repurposing that capital? You know,
For the brand new ones, we've only ever just sold them. I like to buy a lot of existing ones, and I'll owner finance them out. But the cost differential is just too much. You can buy a used one pretty cheap in comparison to a brand new one.
Right.
You could do it either way, though.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Now, as far as location, I know you mentioned before you're really like Greenville, and for everybody listening, it turns out Chris and I have an awful lot in common, by the way, as far as where we're from, and we know some of the old areas. But have you are you looking? Do you have your eyes on any other, like Alabama, Georgia, more? I know you're in North Carolina now, but more in North Carolina, even Florida, or is it you're looking to stay more in just in South Carolina area to what we used to call upstate?
Yeah, primarily also just because we know it, all of our contractors are there, and we've got like a real well-oiled machine at this point. It's always a pain to go find new contractors and make sure they show up on time, do what they say they're going to do, and they know what the expectation is from us. So it's just easy to stick in our market. If I could do it over again, I would probably go somewhere like Georgia, or even maybe like a North Carolina, Charlotte metro kind of thing, just because, like I said earlier, a lot of the cost is fixed, but they're getting higher sales prices down there. But North Georgia's getting, $275 for these things, and it's all the same cost. And it makes us want to bang our heads against the wall sometimes when we realize how much money we're leaving on the table by not going into these markets. But we just have so much volume going on with where we're at. At any given time, we usually have 15 to 20 of these going simultaneously. And so the thought of going and branching out into a new market and doing that all over again is kind of exhausting. But we have strongly considered going into Georgia and going into North Carolina. And I think we probably will, maybe the next 6 months or so. But as of right now, we're just going to stick with what we know.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. It's interesting. That I-85 corridor, you'll find a lot of people that do commute between Charlotte and Atlanta. And of course, Greenville and upstate South Carolina is right there, So
yeah,
Lake Hartwell and everything. So it's not a bad place to be. And you're not if you're in that area, you're not that far from Atlanta. You're not that far from Charlotte. And there's been a lot of growth, by the way. If you look northeast of Atlanta and west of Charlotte and kind of northeast of the upstate area, there's been a lot of development up in like in Franklin, North Carolina, and west of Hendersonville. I mean, people building big, beautiful homes up there. Just, if it was one of the few places in the country, at least on the East Coast, that have yet to be developed, and now it's happening right in front of us.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But so let's talk about. I want to do a comparison here. Most of the people that I've taught, and I run the agents I run on my team, the Global Investor Agent team. Some of them are investors too, but a lot of them all work with investors. Investors are used to the traditional flip, buying a home that's it's a value add. They need new kitchens, new roofs, new carpeting, windows, doors, things like that. So compared to that, how would you if you could do a comparison for us? Do the land home package, and why would it be better than flips? And some of it might be the money, but I like the fact that you mentioned the ones you're doing, it's more predictable. Is that more what you would say to people? You probably had this discussion with a lot of investors, but
Yeah,
what do
absolutely.
you generally tell them when they're thinking about a regular flip versus this,
So before we started doing this, Robert and I were doing, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 flips per year. And so we've done quite a few of them. And the problems that we always ran into was it's always more work than you think it's going to be. It's always going to cost more than you think it's going to cost. And it's always going to take longer than you think it's going to take. And I can remember there are so many deals that we did where, oh man, we're going to make $40,000 or $50,000 flipping this house. Actually, we lost $5,000. And so the ebb and flow of flipping houses, it's a roller coaster. And what you think you're going to make on a deal, it never seems to pan out that way. At least for us, it didn't seem that way. Maybe we're just bad at flipping. But I didn't like how there was always a surprise. And the other thing about it is you're kind of repurposing a house. And so sometimes we buy houses that just have kind of like a weird layout. And, we'll renovate it, make it look nice. And hopefully the buyer can kind of look past the fact that it's got this weird bedroom over here or whatever. And what I like about doing these land home deals is the houses now are, to 2026 standards in terms of the layout of them is nice. There's nothing wonky about it. You're not flipping a 1920s mill house. The other thing about it is we're having a lot of competition, at least in our market, with new construction homes. And so when these builders are able to sell a new construction home at close to the same price as you're trying to sell your renovated house, and most people are just going to go buy a brand new home because they think that's better than buying a renovated one. So selling them can also be a little tricky, at least in this current market and our market. But with these mobile homes, we don't have any competition at our price points. You can't buy a renovated house for $220 around Greenville. It just doesn't exist. And so what we're competing with is fixer-upper houses or like a little tiny 2-1 house. But there's nothing else that really is even close to our price point. And so we're able to sell these really quickly, where a lot of my friends that are flippers or even some builders, they're getting stuck with a lot of inventory just because of the way that the market has changed. I would say to answer your question, the main thing is predictability. Like I said, it's the same thing every single time. There's no guesswork. Also the timeline, like I mentioned earlier, if we buy a lot today, we're going to be on the market in 60 days. And I can remember some flips that took 7 months. And it's like, man, am I ever going to get out of this deal? So with these, the churn and burn is really nice. Could usually start to finish. We're talking 4 months. Buy land today, we're going to be sold in 4 months. We can churn that same money 3 times a year in an ideal world, where we couldn't do that when we were flipping houses. And then, the main thing is predictability and the ability to streamline it. Same thing every time. The contractors know what to expect every single time. Where with flipping houses, it was never the same. There was always a surprise. And it's just harder to streamline that, I think.
Yeah. The flipping, it's funny, as I did mostly rentals. I didn't start flipping till probably the early to mid 2000s. And it was going well. But in 2007, I started sensing this market, I didn't know what it was. I knew there were some serious problems. I was in banking, by the way, at the time. So I knew that some of the big banks were selling their mortgage business. And I'm thinking, they know something. Wall Street and mass media was still saying everything's great. We're trucking right along. And yet I'm watching these big banks sell their mortgage businesses and plot them off on other unsuspecting banks. And I thought they know something. So July 30th, 2007, I did my last flip in that time frame because I took the money. I made $75,000, and I thought, I'm not going to flip anymore. I just got a funny feeling about this. And sure enough, in August, the stock market was doing these huge leaps and bounds and going up and down, and then it started going down dramatically. By the end of that year, man, a third of the mortgage brokers were gone, just gone. And that's because they were the ones that caused the whole thing, putting together, fake applications, taking your W-2 and mashing it with my 1040 return and making this whole stuff up. And the banks were totally blindsided. They didn't have a clue they were being lied to. So in any case, back to the whole thing though, I did well in flipping when I did it, but to me the risks there was just way too many risks. Time frame. I mean, you open up the wall to put in a new pipe, and next thing you know, you got to put in new wiring. It's endless headaches. It took months, But here, you've got a product that's coming off an assembly line. It's made the exact same way every single time, with the same material, right? The same robotics and machinery making it perfectly, very, very little margin of error on those seams, right? And as long as you control the land, where are you buying it, and so forth, you'd only have a very predictable product. You've got a very predictable profit margin. That to me is extremely appealing. But what I want to ask is, here's a kind of a big leap here. Obviously, we have a shortage of housing in our country. It's ranging between 4 and 7 million units short. And what I'm seeing being done is there's more multifamily, big, apartment, buildings going up, and not a lot of single family homes right now. And I don't know what the builders are thinking. I don't know if they're scared. I mean, I know that they are actually, but to me, as anybody approaches, does this look like to you it's a very affordable, scalable solution for housing? I mean, we need it, and it's like, well, and it's less expensive too, right? I mean, has that ever come up in your discussions, or?
Yeah, and so that's kind of what I was hitting on earlier. A lot of the builders and flippers that I know, they're getting stuck with a lot of houses right now. And I think in our market, don't quote me on this, but our median sales price for housing is somewhere around $400,000. So we're selling these houses at close to 50% of the median sales price in our market, and it is the most affordable thing that's out there. And I think that people's perspectives on it are slowly changing because, like you had mentioned earlier, they don't look like your typical mobile home. When you think of a mobile home, it doesn't really look like that now. They're pretty nice. And some of them, I would live in it. I mean, it really does. When you're inside of them, it doesn't necessarily look like a mobile home. So I do think that the demand for these is very high. As you mentioned, everyone needs affordable housing. It doesn't matter where you're at in the country. That's a problem. And I think that's why we're not really, knock on wood, having an issue getting stuck with anything. Most of these are going under contract within 1 to 2 weeks of us listing it. And I don't know many flippers that can say the same thing right now. And there's not nearly as many people doing this strategy either. And I think part of that is the stigma that's attached to mobile homes. A lot of people, maybe they don't want their ego to be tied to it. I don't know. Or it's just not as well known of a strategy. Not many people are talking about it on YouTube or whatever as well. But to answer your question, yes, I think there's a massive demand for it. We don't seem to have any problem selling them, at least right now. And I know a lot of guys in other parts of the real estate space are having issues selling their product. And so I'm grateful that we don't have that issue. But that's something that I've been wondering. Robert and I talk about it all the time, is what does the future of this look like if the economy goes downhill? Are these buyers that are at this affordable price point, are they the first ones to exit the market because they're getting laid off and they can no longer afford a house? Or is it the people in the middle around the $400,000 price point? Are those the people that really get hammered? We're not sure the answer to that stuff. That is something that you were touching on, how you got out just in time before 2008. I'd almost be curious to hear your thoughts on what's happening right now and what you think the short-term future of everything looks like.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I know we're going to run out of time here pretty quickly, but I do want to ask you there, it's very easy for guys like us, we're entrepreneurs, we focus on the upside, we're not really looking at downside risk. But you kind of mentioned just a moment ago what some of that might be is, not if we are going to slide into a recession at some point. I mean, I'm not trying to scare anybody. It's just a fact of life. It's a mathematical certainty. When people always ask me, hey, you think we're going to have a recession? I'm like, absolutely. When do you think? I say, I can't tell you. Nobody knows. But I can tell you it's a mathematical certainty. We're going to have a recession. It's just a matter of time. So when that happens, you just mentioned one of the downside risks could possibly be that demographic, the people that are buying those homes might be more tradespeople, more in the demographic that are more likely to get laid off, perhaps, administrative, clerical people, things like that. And again, I'm not stereotyping guys. That's just economics. You just study economics and you'll see what I'm talking about. But is there anything else you can think of that we should be letting people know? Hey, these are the pros and the cons. Here's a couple things you need to know could be considered a downside or a risk of this whole model. I mean, I'm not thinking of anything right now myself other than what we just talked about. But anything else you can think of? Or
the main challenges that we had when we started was one, education. There was no one talking about it. I thought I created it up. I thought I made it up. I mean, I really did, because I couldn't find anything on YouTube. No one was ever talking about this strategy. Another thing was funding deals. Since it's not really that well known or talked about, there's not many DSCR lenders for it. There's not a lot of banks that want to touch it. A lot of banks don't like land, and they also don't like mobile homes. So we're putting the two together. You can imagine how many banks are excited to do that deal with us. So at first, that was the challenge. I think there's more conversation around it now than there was. But those were the two things, the education and funding those deals. And we kind of had a leg up because we owned a lot of mobile home parks and we were familiar with mobile homes. But those were the biggest challenges that we ran into with these. As far as selling them in the market, we haven't had really any challenges with that. The only thing I'd tell you is, like I said earlier, stay out of land in bad areas, and also don't buy land that's down in a hole.
Yeah. Don't buy land in a hole. I love that one. It's some of the simplest, some of the most profound truths are the simplest truths, So, well, let's wrap it up with this. We have a lot of investors listening to this, a lot of agents also who want to be investors and want to work with investors. But so how can they get involved with this? Or is there a program you have? Like, do you ever do joint ventures? If somebody brings in the money and you guys do the execution, anything like that going on that people can tap into?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you asking. So we do have a program called the Land Home League. We partner with Brent Bowers, who owns the Land Sharks. If anyone's interested in learning more about that, you can go to thelandsharks.com and book a call with Brent, and he'll tell you all about it. We've had a bunch of people join, and we will sometimes fund their deals. We'll bring cash and become a partner with them if they need that. But the whole program is basically just hand-holding for this model. Like I said, there's no one talking about it really. So we thought, hey, why don't we go teach it? Because somehow we fumbled through and figured it out. So basically, it's us hand-holding people through their deals. We'll look at their land to see if it's worth doing one of these land home packages on. While they're doing the setup and the whole process, we'll answer any questions they have, all of that. If they want, they can reach out to me. And my cell phone number, I'm happy to give it up, is 770-862-0246. If someone calls me and I don't answer, please leave a voicemail or text me, even that's fine as well. I'm happy to be a resource for people in any way that I can. And if people have capital they're interested in partnering on these and maybe don't want to do one on their own yet, we're always open to bringing in more partners as well, and they can reach out to me directly.
Yeah. Well, I love it. So the number was 770-862, and then the last 4 digits, 0246.
Correct.
Well, I did all that from memory. Holy cow! I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket. Well, you know what? I do know who's Brendan. As soon as you said the Land Shark, I know exactly what it was. We had him on our podcast. I think I had him actually teach a Monday Night Live for me one time, and it was, that was great program, and we were using tools to find the properties. And we just hit it off really well. Sometimes it takes a while for our brain to kick in, but yeah, when you talk to him, tell him I said hello, and I tell you what, maybe we'll get him back on or something. But when we can do I'll have you on Monday Night Live, you and Brent together, something like that. I'll keep you posted.
Sure, that'd be great.
Yep, but I really appreciate you being on today, Chris. Man, I know you're busy, and I appreciate you sharing some really good golden nuggets. Everybody you did a great job.
Awesome, thank you, Gary. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yep, you got it. And then for everybody listening, just remember this: the Land Home League. So look that up, or give Chris a call. Okay. And we appreciate you listening to the program. We really appreciate your reviews. If you could leave a review, guys, man, it means the world to us. It doesn't cost anything. We don't make money doing this. It's public service, but we love it because we get to meet guys like us, each other. We're entrepreneurs. I mean, this is heaven for us. So you guys help make that happen, and we help make you a lot of money when you're in the process of doing this. So thanks for your reviews. We appreciate it, and we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cashflow Podcast. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, and God bless you and all your loved ones.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cashflow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.